Test. Hey, okay. So we are at 7 o'clock, but I still have quite a line waiting to sign in. So we're going to hold off so that everybody can get in. There's plenty of chairs. There's a bunch of chairs over here yet. So there's a few more to get signed in, and then once that happens, we'll get started. So, all right. Thank you. All right. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to call to order the 2022 annual meeting of the town of Pittsfield. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Please take a moment at this time to reflect, or you may join me in prayer. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. God of power and might, wisdom and justice, through you authority is rightly administered, laws are enacted, and judgment is decreed. Assist with your spirit of counsel and fortitude the President and other government leaders of these United States, the state of Wisconsin, Brown County, and this township. May they always seek the ways of righteousness, justice, and mercy. Grant that they may be enabled by your powerful protection to lead with honesty and integrity. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. All right, so as everybody's seen, we've got an agenda tonight. We're going to follow that. I know that everyone is really interested in items number 19 and 20. Okay? So, but understand we run these meetings every year. Some of you are here, some of you aren't. We have reports that we're going to get through, and then we'll get down to items 19 and 20. And when we get there, I'm going to try to do some education, a little bit of annexation and water 101, so everybody understands that. So it'll be worth the wait, I hope. So we'll start off. The first thing I want to make sure that I let everyone know is this meeting is being broadcast. As you can see, the little device here in the center aisle, that's called an owl. It kind of looks like an owl if you use your imagination. But it is broadcasting a 360-degree camera and a microphone, and this is being broadcast out live. We've been doing that for about 6-8 months now with the town meetings. So it broadcasts out over Facebook. We've had some problems, but we think we've got that fixed. The last meeting, it worked fine, so hopefully this meeting we won't have any issues either. So, those of you that are wishing to speak, when we get to certain topics, I ask that you do raise your hand, and because we are broadcasting, if I call on you, I'm going to ask that you come up to the table here. There is a microphone on that table, which will then broadcast you around the room so that people can hear you. I ask that you state your name and your address, because this is recorded into the minutes of the meeting. So I ask that you do that. I've got that word later there. So as I said when I started this off, I'm going to try to do some education. So I'm going to ask that you hold your questions if you can, unless it's an important point and we can handle it. I might actually, if you ask the question, I might say, I got a slide for that. Okay, I got like 85 slides in a PowerPoint here to help with the education. Okay, so we'll start off tonight with introductions. If you haven't figured that out, I'm your town chairman. I'm Keith Denise. This is 17 years for me of doing this. I can't believe it's been that long. And I do want to take just a moment at this point in time, because the lady that served before me, Chairman Dawn Killen, just passed away within the last couple of weeks. So if you could just take a couple moments of silence to recognize her and her contributions to this town. She was chair, I believe, for 15 years. So. Thank you. So next, immediately to my right, Supervisor Bodart, Mike Bodart, is one of our supervisors, and immediately seated next to him is Supervisor Brandon Holowinski. We are your elected officials. Okay, our elections are next April, so if you don't like what you hear tonight, feel free to take out papers and you're welcome to run next April. Okay, we're trying to do the best we can, which I'm sure you all understand. So next to him is our engineer. That is Paul Willis. He's with Mead and Hunt. We've been contracting with them for a number of years to do engineering for the town. Next to him is Matt Parmentier. He is the town councilor, the town attorney. We recently retained him as a new attorney as the issues that we were talking about in 19 and 20 were heating up. And he's got some experience in those issues, so it's one of the reasons why we retained him. To my left is the town clerk, Debbie Diederich. She's also our zoning administrator. And immediately to her is Christine Decker. She is our treasurer. She took over for Sandy Herod last year. So this is her first annual meeting and giving a report at the annual meeting, so hold the heck of it. I believe everybody signed in, so I'm going to ask, if you didn't sign in, it is important that you do sign in. Debbie had a sign-up sheet back by the cookies, so don't forget to take cookies and water when you need it. I'm going to now, at this point in time, I'm going to turn it over to our attorney to actually talk about what an annual meeting is and what can actually be done at an annual meeting, because it isn't what's called a meeting of the electors. So, Mr. Parmentier.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. As you just heard, my name is Matt Parmentier. I'm the town attorney. Welcome to the annual meeting of the electors. It's nice to see a very good turnout, and I'm going to assume that some of you haven't been to an annual meeting before. So I want to give you a little bit of an overview what the annual meeting is, and then we'll talk about the agenda so that you understand what the evening is going to look like as we move on. Hopefully we'll have a good feel for that before we dive into the reports and the other items. So the annual meeting itself is a unique type of meeting, unique for a few reasons. One is that it's infrequent. We do it once a year. It's our annual meeting. One is that there's a unique set of actions that can be taken at an annual meeting. There's actually a section of the state statutes that lists the things that can go on at an annual meeting of the electors. And in fact, the electors vote on these topics. Anyone who is a resident of the town of Pittsfield who is qualified to vote is an elector of the town of Pittsfield and is eligible to take part in these votes. So this is not, although the town board is up here, this is not a meeting of the town board. They are electors just as you are electors, and you all collectively have the same ability to do things at an annual meeting of the electors, but no board decisions are going to be made tonight. That's just not how these meetings work. And these are unique in terms of just the history of annual meetings. The annual meeting that you're at tonight traces its roots back to the old New England town meetings around the time of the founding of the country. People would get together at town halls, talk about the issues of the day, make decisions by a show of hands, and majority vote ruled. That's how they did things at the New England elector meetings. That has carried forward to the town of Pittsfield in 2022, and here we are. It's unique to towns. Villages don't do it, cities don't do it, counties don't do it, only towns do. And it's really the only, as far as I'm aware, real direct democracy type thing that we have left in the state of Wisconsin. So it's interesting to take part in. It's a neat history. You're part of 250 years of history of these types of meetings. So I think that's pretty cool. The agenda itself is broken down into three general topics, and this is normal for annual meetings. The first is some reporting items, so you'll see it on your agenda. Items, basically 7 down through 18 are reporting items. So you'll hear from town officials or representatives of town-related entities about what's been going on within their realm over the last year. What do you expect the upcoming year? Those types of things. Those are just reporting items. Then we will, as many meetings like this do, we'll take a deep dive into a couple of topics. You heard that those are going to be water and annexation. We'll talk in depth and try and get everybody as good of an understanding of those topics as possible. So that'll come up later in the meeting. And then if you look at your agenda, there is item 22, that's any other business. That's where these actions that I mentioned, again, the special unique elector meeting actions can take place. So if somebody does wish to bring something to the table, that's the time to do it. Understand, again, there is a list of what authority the electors have. It's in the statutes. If you bring up something that's on the list, it's narrow and specific, but if you bring up something that's on the list, we vote on it, it passes or fails, that's a binding decision. If you bring up anything else that's not on the list, we can still do that, we can still vote on stuff, it's just not binding if it's not on the statutory list, so think of it as, an advisory vote on whatever it may be, and then the board someday may take it up on its own and be guided by, whatever the results is tonight. Maybe nobody has anything, and that's normal too, but if we get to that point, and there are some questions, I'll help you out, figure out what's on the list, what's off the list, what the effects of these things are. And when that's done, we'll adjourn. I think that's a big picture of how the meeting will go. Does that make sense up here?
I think that's good. I think just to replay some history, it was at an annual meeting that a recommendation vote was made that we look to replace the town hall. That put us here in this community center. That happened and that was just a recommendation vote. And then there was a meeting of the electors. I don't believe it actually happened at an annual meeting, but one of the things that you can do at an annual meeting is a vote to sell property, town-owned property. So that's one of those few things that fall into that limited list of things that actually are binding. So I think we're good there. Before we go to that, the next item on the agenda are the minutes of the April 20th, 2021 annual meeting. Diederik, are you ready?
Sure.
All right.
The annual meeting for the town of Pittsfield was held on Tuesday, April 20th, 2021. Chairman Denies called the meeting to order at 7 p.m., followed by the Pledge of Allegiance and opening prayer. Members of the town board were introduced. Clerk Dietrich read the minutes from the July 21st, 2020 annual meeting. Motion by Brian Verheiden, second by Jan Boder to approve the minutes as read. Motion carried. Gold Cross representative gave a report for the NEW rescue. He started by thanking the residents for the ability to speak at the meeting and to serve the community. In 2020, NEW had a total of 601 requests for service, of which 101 calls were from the town of Pittsfield. For the town of Pittsfield area, the response time is about 8 minutes and 11 seconds. That time is an excellent response. The average for a rural area, most rural areas have 17 to 20 minute response time. There were 152 no transport calls in 2020, with 47 having no contact, leaving NEW a 12% no transport rate. The average is approximately 25%. The total net gain for NEW rescue in 2020 was $11,485.86. The year is starting off on a good note financially with $7,599.08 through March. The rescue was striving to be more interactive with the communities along with the police and fire departments. They are offering CPR classes for kids with a minimum age of 12. Motion by Helen Wagner, second by Stan Kazmarek to approve the report. Motion carried. Chief James Stuczynski gave the report for Tri-County Fire Department. Presently, there are 34 members. Fire runs for 2020 were down with a total of 152 runs, with 42 being in the town of Pittsfield. The department's service area population was at 12,548 people in 2020. The town of Pittsfield being up with 11 people. There was a 1.49% increase in the budget. The department received a DNR grant in 2020 for $1,625.48, which is a 50-50 match. The department purchased a battery-operated set of jaws along with the cribbing and a new gas meter. The Packerland Fire District training is continuing on a quarterly basis. The training will be conducted in the new training center that was constructed at the Howard Swamico Station number 2. The department will be applying for a DNR grant again this coming year. Motion by Ray Towser, second by Ralph Dietrich to approve the report. Motion carried. Treasurer Harry reported the town to have a positive year-end balance of $437,605 at the end of 2020. The town tax rate for 2021 is $2.79 per 1,000 home value, which is nearly 50 cents down from last year due to the town reevaluation. The levy for 2020 is at $845,000. There were 148 dog tags issued during 2020, along with 78 kennel licenses, for a total of 220 dog licenses. The town applied for a We Cares grant and received $50,350. In 2020, there is a possibility of $278,000 through CARES grant to be used within 3 years or to be paid back in 2024. The monies will need to be used with 4 very specific things. The town debt is at $1,465,598. That was borrowed for the construction of the new community center, athletic field, and new parking lot addition. The terms of the loan is a 10-year period with a payoff being in 2029. Motion by Stan Kazmarek, second by Ray Towser to approve the report. Motion carried. Zoning Administrator Deb Dietrich reported issuing a total of 53 permits in 2020 for an increased assessed value of $5,501,501,450 Motion by Brian Verheiden, second by Keith Denies to approve the report. Motion carried. Ray Tauser gave the community park report, stated that the athletic field was tiled, planted, and stones were picked in 2020. The park cleanup day was coming up on May 1st, and volunteers were welcome to come. The committee is planning a September 11th Community Day celebration at the community center. The athletic fields will be assessed for usage in the fall. Motion by Keith Denies, second by Helen Wagner to approve the report. Motion carried. Humane officer report was given by Monica Huff. Monica is a certified humane officer we contract through the village of Howard. She picked up 8 dogs, 20 cats, 1 other, 6 wild animals for the town of Pittsfield in 2020. Motion by Dan Bodart, second by Teresa Wargo to approve the report. Motion carried. Chairman Denies announced the financial statement was available for review. Roads. Portions of Woodside Drive will be reconstructed in 2021. Chip seal or double chip seal will be done on Meadow Drive, River Lane, Briar Lane, Sand Hill Drive, Sumac Drive, and Pine Ridge Court in 2021. We will also have the town's portion of Angle Drive done in conjunction with the town of Maple Grove. $53,000 will be spent on crack sealing on several of the roads in 2021. There was no other business. Motion by Teresa Wargo, second by Stan Kazmir to adjourn at 7:55 p.m. Motion carried. Deb Dietrich, clerk.
Okay. You heard that one lasted only till 7:55. I'm gonna bet this one we're gonna go a little bit longer than that, but that's okay. So now the next part, you heard as she was going through that there were motions and seconds and whatnot, so I'll do the same thing. You won't have to get up. That's all I ask is if you make a motion that you state your name, and if you second it, state your name so that Deb can record it. So at this point in time, a motion to approve the minutes of last year's annual meeting would be appropriate. Do I have someone who would like to make that motion?
Helen Wagner will make the motion.
I have Helen Wagner's making the motion. Do I have a second? Dan Kazmarek is making the second. All those in favor state aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, that'll carry. All right, so that was easy. All right, now we'll move on to our NEW Paramedic Rescue First Responder report. Come on up. You want to step up to the table? Introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jason Kotherman. I'm a paramedic with NEW Paramedic Rescue. Been a paramedic for about 20 years. Came to this department about 2 years ago, assigned by Gold Cross, and enjoying my time here. NEW Rescue Northeast Wisconsin Paramedic Service was formed in 2005 as a municipality non-for-profit which services the village of Pulaski, Township of Pittsfield, Township of Chase, Township of Angelica, Township of Lesser, and Township of Maple Grove. We service a community of 13,840 people and respond to more than 600 911 calls every year. We are managed by Gold Cross Ambulance, who provides the billing, mechanical, and employee management, which is approved by a board of directors made up of one member of each municipality. NEW is run by Bob Egger. He's a paramedic supervisor for us. Under the direction of Nick Romanesco, he's the Gold Cross Ambulance Operations Director, and Mark Fredrickson, he's the Gold Cross CEO and the NEW Board of Directors. Just as a side note, Gold Cross is a not-for-profit service owned by area hospitals in the Fox Valley area. I would like to take this chance to thank you for inviting me to your annual meeting. I would also like to thank you for letting us serve your community and trusting us to care for your sick or injured family members in their time of need as we strive to do so in a professional, timely, and caring manner. 2021 was another good year for NEW as we were able to finish the year on a positive note and give back $35,601.45 to the communities who support us, with the town of Pittsfield receiving $7,122.86 back, which was your per capita portion. We ended our year with 661 responses. That's up 60 responses from 2020. 449 transports and 212 no transports. Although our no transport percentage was at 32.1% for the year, the majority of these calls were calls either canceled en route, fire standbys, police standbys, invalid assists, or deceased patients. Some were taken by helicopter or false pendant pushes that activate an alarm that will dispatch us. other various reasons not to be transported and out of our control to transport some of those patients. We responded 144 times to the town of Pittsfield out of our 661 responses. That's up 40 responses from the 2020 year. We had 56 mutual aid requests sent to other rescue squads, mainly County Rescue, due to us being on calls already, and we responded for 9 times for mutual aid that was requested by us from other services that needed us. Mountain Ambulance, County Rescue, Shawano, and Gillett area called us to respond into their areas. Our average response time in the town of Pittsfield was 10 minutes and 26 seconds from the time we were dispatched by 911 until we showed up at the door. This is an excellent response average for a rural area, as most rural areas have an average of 17 to 20 minute response times. Our 2022 budget, which was approved, will come in at $16.92 per capita, which is down from $17.05 per capita last year. But we feel this should be in line with the increased residency, growing inflation, and costs based on our projected number of calls and net revenue. So far this year, we are off to a tough start through March, but hopefully we will be able to again give back money to the communities, even though it is always our goal to break even at the end of the year with a budget. We are very excited to once again be more interactive with our communities, doing football standbys, working with the various scout troops, the Polka Days Parade, standbys at local township events, along with some continued departmental trainings with the police and fire departments. So at this time, I'll open it up to anybody who has any questions for me that might be related to ambulance calls or 911 responses.
First of all, thank you for your services. The question I do have is based on last year's response time of 8 minutes and well, for 2020, and now this year's is 10 minutes. Do you forecast or see any way to improve that for the following year?
Just
Is
for
really
the,
that in a plan?
just, could you state your name just for the record?
Jay Myers,
Thank you.
509-7111.
Thank you very much.
I think some of how we averaged that was Brown County was going to be doing some road construction, and so we were kind of allowing for some of that. We're always constantly using our mapping services to try to reroute and find better ways to get through town. The more calls we pick up, the likelihood of us already being in Green Bay at one of the hospitals, that ramps up also, so we're responding from a further distance away. Green Bay, Aurora Hospital is kind of quite a ways from us, or we're all the way over in Shawano. So if we feel that there's another ambulance service that may be closer than our particular unit, then we'll have them dispatched as well, and then we'll see who gets there fastest. But to answer your question more directly, we're always looking at ways to improve our response times, everything from better mapping to keeping our ambulances, always running well and staying on top of everything, having everything stocked and ready to go in the ambulance when a call comes in.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Seeing no questions, motion to approve the report would be in order. Someone, a motion, do I have a second?
Ron White, second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Thank you very much. Pulaski Tri-County Fire Department, Chief Stachinsky.
Would you please use the mic?
Sorry about that. I'm trying to, Jamie, is that one working? Try to step up close, make sure that,
Is that on?
push the button.
Hit a lot of buttons. Is that on? Better? Not so much?
Here, James, use that.
Is this better now? Okay. Hi, I'm James Stachinsky, Pulaski Fire Chief. Thank you for taking a few minutes to hear our report. Pulaski Fire currently has 37 members on our department now. Our meetings are the second and fourth Monday of each month. The first part of the month is business and training, and then the second half of the month is specialty training, and we specialize in unique training at the same time. If we have any unique issues that come up, we train intensively on the second half of the meeting. Population that we serve grew about 161 residents that we serve in our area. And you can see where Pittsfield grew in our department, our coverage area by 40 people over the year before, which is great because there's growth out here and we appreciate that. We see it in this room for sure. We had a very unique year. We had a record runs year last year. At 2021, we had over 205 runs compared to 152 the year before. So we're not trying to set records here. We want to go down. So needless to say, it wasn't a good year, but we got through it and we're doing better. You can see how you average in the report. If you guys have any, if there's not, there's some extra around the room. In 2020, how Pittsfield did versus 2021. You guys did well. You actually went down a run for our department versus some of our neighboring departments, where Pulaski doubled from 30 to 60, and even Chase went from 11 to 23. So you guys did well with your fire controls, fire issues. So we're very proud of that. You can see where we do mutual aid, where it says our Packerland Fire District. We run a fire district which is Pulaski, Howard, and Swamico. We have it's better than a mutual aid. It's a district, so we have extra response when the page goes off for a structure fire. We support each other because manpower is always hurting, daytime, nighttime. Resources are always in need, whether it's an engine company or a tender or ladder. So we really support each other, and that really helps to keep all our costs down. You can see what your proportion was for the town of Pittsfield for our vehicle operation funds versus the neighbors. That goes on a 5-year average. So if you do have a high year, 1 year, you don't get dinged so bad. Or if it lows, the average comes down. So that helps everybody. Pulaski Fire, we had a budget increase of 2.02% increase. That was basically to handle some PPE, small gear, and some equipment. Last year we stated we bought some JAWS equipment and just stuff to upgrade to make sure our equipment is as best as possible at the time. We did receive a grant last year, and then we received another one this year from DNR for almost $1,400, 50-50 matching grant. We do have grants out there right now that are pending, and they're pretty intense grants, whether it's with some communications and vehicles at the same time. So if any of those grants come true, we'll be very successful and very happy if we can pull those off. In 2021, the department, we did some school tours, safety tours, talking about fire prevention, safety, 911, escape routes for schools, and going home to share that with your kids. Hopefully they shared that when they came home. If you have little ones in school, we appreciate their efforts of listening and getting involved. And then we also did with our local VFW and Legion, we supported their golf outing, which was dedicated from 9/11. So that was a very good ceremony and supported their event at the same time. And then we continue to do the Polka Days, safety with traffic control and making sure everybody's safe during a large event in town where we have a lot of outside people. And normally we have that. There's tornadoes and all the good stuff that goes on with that. So evacuation, all that fun stuff comes into play. So, and then this year we're looking at upgrading our ladder. Our ladder is 20 years old, so hopefully in another month and a half roughly, we'll be able to upgrade. We're buying a used ladder type scenario. New ones are 1.3 million. We're not doing that. We're looking at under 200,000 for a ladder that will handle our needs. We're not extraordinary or extravagant. It's something that's going to do the job for us, and we're going to get away from the 40-year-old ladder. Still doing the job. Pump test is good. Still pumps a lot of water, but it's time to upgrade that thing. Sorry about it. So, and then obviously the DNR, AFG grants, we're still working on it at the same time. And then something unique this year that's going to come down is going to be the Fire and Iron Run. They do that to support the the 9/11 scenarios for police, fire, and rescue, and we're actually hosting that at our station during that weekend of 9/11. Motorcycle riders support all the departments in the area, and we're the ones that are going to host the event this year on that Saturday, and they're going to start at our station and go out from there. So we'll have a little more information when it gets a little closer to the event, but it's pretty well finalized per se, so everything is on a go there. And then obviously I touch base a little bit on our Packerland Fire District. We're actually continue to do quarterly training. We're going to be training this Monday at our facility down here at Howard Station 2 for some search and rescue and some different evolutions we can do there that you don't have to pay TC money to go to for the school. We can do the same execution and evolution for our members to make sure that their skill level is where we need to in a safe environment. So that's what we use that tower for. And we obviously do other special events to support the department, via the firefighters. We had a bowling tournament this year, and we actually purchased some Milwaukee lighting for the scene, so we don't have to drag cords out and stuff and trip over those. So we upgraded our lighting for the scenes for safety around the scene, and that's it. And then you see a list of our current firefighters or officers of the department at this time. I will entertain any questions that somebody might have.
Seeing no questions, I think somebody probably would have said this anyways, but thank you and extend the thanks to your membership also for the service that they provide. So
You're welcome.
Do I have someone that would like to make a motion?
I would be Judy Cass, so I would motion
Judy Casper, motion approved.
second, Marion Schmidt.
Marion Schmitz, second. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Treasurer's report. Ms. Becker.
Okay, is this on?
No.
I'll check the bottom.
Is that better? Yes? Okay. The current town levy is $858,000. The current assessed value of our town is $307,148,500. Our current mill rate is $2.79 per $1,000 value. The total tax rate is $12.86. A reminder to property owners to view your tax bills and make sure you receive the lottery gaming credit deduction. You're entitled if your home address was your primary as of January 1st. If you didn't, please contact me and I can provide the needed forms. The town's approved budget for 2021 had estimated revenue and expenses of $1,405,920. Revenue received for 2021 was 95% and expenses spent was 98%. The town had positive carryover balance of $439,231.62 of unassigned spending from the past year. For the record, here are the following March statement account balances. General fund had $1,118,688.64. The park fund had $9,792.76. The bridge fund had $112,051.79. The community center loan was taken out in 2019 with yearly payments of $223,091.40. The existing debt is at $1,300,219.60. The first opportunity to refinance is in 2024 and expected payoff is 2029. Licensing your pet should have been done by March 31st of each year to avoid extra late charges. Per state statute requires pet owners to annually pay the dog license tax and obtain a license. In 2021, there were 150 individual dog tags sold and 75 tags issued to the 11 kennel owners for a total of 225. The dog license application can be found on the town's website on the town permit page, which is found on the town services drop-down menu. If your pet is running at large and picked up by the humane officer or sheriff department, the town charges you a $50 fee, and the owner also gets a separate bill from the shelter.
Which honorable?
Oh, ARPA, sure. Our town was awarded $294,955.99 through the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA. In June of 2021, the town received the first half of the funds. The remaining portion will be received in this current year, 2022. The town has specific guidelines it must follow in spending the funds and report annually to the Treasury Department. As of March, the town has allocated $75,000 to be given to the Pittsfield Sanitary District. Half was given when we received our first payment, and half will be given when we receive the second. The funds must be obligated by the end of 2024 and expended by the end of 2026.
Any questions for our treasurer? A motion to approve her report would be in order.
Motion. Matt Reynolds.
Matt, do I have a second?
Neil Newman, second.
Neil Newman seconds. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Just a point on the ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act. One of the things up there is broadband. The town did put out a request for information to companies to improve the broadband services within the town. We had 4 companies with 5 different options to improve that responded to that. We've set up a date where those companies are going to give presentations of April 27th, starting at 5 p.m. So at 5, 6, 7, and 8, those presentations will be going on. If you're interested, it is a public meeting, and you're more than welcome to come and watch and see. This is one of the ways we're looking to spend that ARPA money. So that is coming up. We'll move on to our annual financial report. Come on up, introduce yourself.
Good evening. I'm Leah Lasecki with CLA, and I'm your external auditors.
Maybe put it up on your book, be closer to.
Can everybody hear me? Okay, a little bit of an echo. All right. Again, I'm Leah Lasecki with CLA, and I'm your external auditors. So Christine already did quite a bit of the work for me to go through some of this data, so thank you for that. I just kind of want to give an overview of the audit process. So we work with Deb and Christine on the annual audit. We do not do that on site. We do that back at our office, as well as some communication back and forth with Deb and Christine as well. An external audit, what is an external audit? I don't want it to get confused with the role that Christine performs for the town. An external auditor, I shouldn't say our sole purpose, but what our end goal is to give you an opinion on your financial statements, okay? And for the town of Pittsfield, we give you an unmodified opinion, which means that your financial statements, as far as we're aware, are not materially misstated, okay? It's important to understand materiality, because obviously we're not looking at every dollar, we're not looking at every $1,000, okay? We're looking at it from a materiality standpoint, okay? But from our opinion and the procedures that we've done, we feel that the annual financial statements of the town of Pittsfield are materially correct, okay? So the town's year end is December 31st, okay? And I'm just gonna go through some real high level data. The board members do have copies of the financial statements in front of them. And I'm just gonna point out a couple of pages. So to start with, on page 1, as I had said, we gave you an unmodified audit opinion, okay? Which is what this report goes through, okay? If you can turn real quick to pages 5 and 6. So in addition to your fund statements, which are your budget basis, we also, as part of the services that we provide to you, we convert your books to full accrual, okay? So that's what pages 5 and 6 are, okay? I'll have you pass by those real quick unless anybody has questions. Pages 7, 8, and 9 are your fund statements, okay? So this exactly equals to what your budget is and what your books equal, okay? So just some high-level data real quick. You had an increase in assets of about $146,000 over the previous year. You had an increase in liabilities of about $95,000, okay? That increase in liabilities is almost entirely related to ARPA, because as Christine had said, you receive those funds in cash, but you don't recognize them in revenue until you've spent the money, okay? So you'll see a very large liability of $109,000 of unspent ARPA monies as of 12/31/2021, okay? Overall, for liabilities, we noted no liabilities that were past due. Everything was current, okay? Looking real quick at fund balances, everybody should be most concerned with what your ending fund balance is as of 12/31, okay? You have three buckets of fund balance. You have restricted, assigned, and unassigned, okay? And the board has implemented a policy, a minimum fund balance policy, okay, that requires that you keep at least 20% of unassigned fund balance in your fund balance, okay? Meaning that it's kind of like I don't want to call it a rainy day fund, but it's basically that is that 20% that if something were to happen, you have the cash flow to be able to respond to it, okay? So you have unassigned fund balance as of 12/31/2021 of $247,000, okay? Again, that's 20%. And it's 20% of next year's budget. So it's approximately 20% of the budget, okay? You have assigned fund balances of about $260,000, for which the board members have earmarked specific amounts earmarked for specific projects, okay? And I'll talk about those assignments in just a second, okay? So overall, you had an increase in fund balance of $38,000. The unassigned fund balance went up about $11,000 from the previous year, okay? So overall, the town of Pittsfield, in my opinion, but you can't put this down for sure, that's my opinion, you're in a very strong financial position as a town, okay? And you've put forth these policies to be able to maintain that fund balance so that you can continue to grow, okay? All right, looking real quick at page 9. As I had said, you had an increase in fund balance of about $37,000, okay? You did budget a usage of fund balance of about $50,000, for which you actually did not end up occurring. You actually did have an excess of $37,000 in fund balance, okay? But you budgeted to use 50, so you budgeted a loss of 50, okay? All right. So moving into the footnotes real quick, unless anybody has any questions for me, I want to turn real quick to page 25. Christine had already commented on this, but I want to comment on it again. The town of Pittsfield does not, in my opinion, again, does not have a tremendous amount of debt. Most of your debt is going to be on this building. You're sitting with about $1.383 million in debt. Now that was as of 12/31, so there has been a debt payment made since then, but that was the amount as of December 31st. As Christine had also mentioned, that will balloon in 2024 and require a refinance at that time. Okay? All right. My last comment real quick, unless anybody had any questions on any of the notes or anything? No? Okay. My last comments are going to be real quick on, excuse me. I'm condensing my presentation a little bit here to make sure that you guys have time. Okay, page 32. So one of the things that an auditor does, we don't just tick and tie out the numbers and give you an unmodified opinion. What we need to do as part of our requirements, because you are a governmental entity, is we have to understand your controls. We don't test your controls, but we have to understand your controls. And if there's anything that we identify as auditors that just doesn't look quite right, or it's not set up quite right, we have to report that to those charged with governance, okay? So there are just two issues that we've identified with the town of Pittsfield that we consider to be significant deficiencies. They're not material weaknesses in your internal control, but they are significant, okay? And I only bring these up because it's important just to keep them in mind, okay? So on page 34, We prepare your financial statements. As auditors, it's our responsibility to prepare your financial statements. Because we do that, there could be something that we miss. In a perfect control environment, you would be preparing your financial statements yourself. But because you outsource that to us, that unfortunately becomes a finding, okay? We don't expect, I work with a ton of municipalities, we do not expect that anybody can prepare their own financial statements with how unbelievably complicated our accounting standards have become, okay? So I don't want that to mislead anybody to think that, oh, you should be, because you should, in my opinion, the only clients I have that do are counties, okay? All right, and the last comment I'm gonna have real quick on page 35 is in regards to adjustments that we make to the town's financial records. I don't feel that for the town of Pittsfield that we make a tremendous amount of auditor entries, which is important, because if you saw an auditor coming through making a slew of journal entries, that's not a good thing. For the town of Pittsfield, we don't. Most of them relate to the tax roll reconciliation, which is highly complex. A few other things for just correcting misclassifications and those types of things. But overall, our adjustments are not significant, okay? We do, however, because we proposed them in the first place, it does become a finding in our report, okay? Again, I work with a lot of municipalities. This is in almost every report that I report out to, okay? So again, overall, from an external auditor's perspective, I think that everything has been done very well this year. I thank Deb and Christine for their work. Does anybody have any questions?
Seeing no questions, motion to approve the financial would be in order.
So moved.
Oh, Mr. Stan, Ms. Mayor, do I have a second? We got back there, Jan Bodart. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much for your time and work that you do to make sure that everything is adding up. We'll move on. The zoning administrator and the building inspector report. Peter?
I'll do the zoning administrator first.
Can you hear, folks?
The zoning administrator summary for the 2021. Permits for new home construction. We had 2 permits this year compared to 2020, I should say this year, in 2021. Compared to 2020, we had 11. Approximate value this year was $790,000 compared to $4,110,000 in 2020. We issued 2 home addition permits worth $421,000 compared to 5 in 2020 at $366,000. We had 1 commercial construction permit this year, an addition for $24,600 compared to 1 of $150,000 in 2020. 10 permits for garages, sheds, and miscellaneous construction worth $319,000 compared to 22 worth $775,450 in 2020. 3 pools, decks, porches, permits for $155,500 were issued compared to none in 2020. 1 antenna permit worth $55,000 was issued last year compared to none in 2020. 2 egg permits were issued at a value of $267,000 compared to 2 in 2020 at $100,000. Other permits that were total construction, we'll do that. Total construction for 2021 was $2,032,100 compared to 2020 at $5,501,450. There were 10 culvert permits issued in 2021 compared to 12 in 2020. There were no weight limits either year. Permits, 3 demolition permits last year compared to none in 2020. 1 sign permit last year, none in 2020. No solid fuel, no pond, no IOH, and no excavating permits were issued either year. Total last year permits, we had 34 compared to 2020 at 53. Then I will do the building inspector's report. He did email me.
Mike said that his summary for 2020 had 3 homes, 4 additions, 9 garages, and 3 renovations.
Any questions on the zoning administrator or the building inspector? Seeing none, a motion to approve would be in order. Dale Goddard. Do I have a second? We got the back there. Tom Steinberg. Got a motion and a second. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none, motion carries. Sewer district report. Mr. Tozier? Try to see if it'll work here.
Does it work fine? Yep. Okay. I'm David Tauscher, Secretary, Pittsfield Sanitary District Number 1. I'm at 4682 Anson Road. Pittsfield Sanitary District has 104 users presently. We are in, and those users are in Anston, Coonish, from Illinois School, south on U, and on Glendale Avenue through Mill Center. The operating expenses for the district are funded through the district users. So there's nothing on the tax base from the sanitary district. We had some infrastructure funding provided from the government, and we will be using that to upgrade some of our pumping, lift stations and grinder pumps. Of concern in the sanitary district for this coming year will be whatever happens on Glendale Avenue with the annex process, because a lot of our current piping runs along Glendale Avenue. And the other thing is the Louisiana Pacific plant that's going up in Anston. That will be anywhere from half as much as what Anston presently is to 1.5 times what Anston presently is. So the existing line would not carry that. We would have to do some kind of expansion for that. With that, any questions?
Seeing no question, a motion to approve would be in order.
Take a motion to approve.
State your name, please.
Glenn Dolizinski.
Glenn Dolizinski. Do I have a second?
Steve Bestel.
Steve Basco. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much, Dave. We'll go on to the Humane Officer report. The Humane Officer, the town contracts with the Village of Howard for its Humane Officer services. In June of 2021, their longtime Humane Officer retired. She did a good job. She got their system running along with what they call the CART team, which was a series of volunteers. She was replaced with Shane Lidstrom, or Lestrid, from the, and he's an employee now of the Village of Howard, and he is our Humane Officer. The CART team was actually expanded in 2021 from 4 members to 9 members. So then what that CART team does is that it's one guy that does this, so there's times when maybe he's on vacation or whatever, but they'll cover. So that volunteer base helps them with that. They also expanded and kind of changing things up and doing some better software for reporting and whatnot. If you check in with the town gets an annual. If you watch town or monthly meetings, the board meetings, you'll see we get an annual or a monthly report from them with details. In 2021, the year-end numbers for the humane officers, they had 96 calls. 36 of those required an actual field response. 30 of those were actually, or 60 of those were actually handled over the phone. Total hours of 49.25 and 697 miles. They picked up 13 dogs, 17 cats, and handled 6 wildlife calls. The CART team handled 6 calls and put 126 miles. They picked up 3 dogs, 1 cat, and handled 2 wildlife calls. Any questions? A motion to approve the humane officer report would be in order. Bert, do I have a second?
Bill Huber.
Bill Weaver. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none, motion carries. Okay, let's talk about some of the road construction projects that we have planned for 2022. First thing I want to do is I want to share this with everybody. Every town and every municipality in the state uses what's called a PACER system to rate the roads. So every road is going around and we look at it, and sometimes the road is split. You know, if it's half of it's done construction in 1 year and the other's half. But those things are all factored in, and there's point valuations that are placed on our roads. It's a 1 to 10 scale. If you look at our roads in the town of Pittsfield, we're actually doing really well. And I want to say that I know that for many years we've tried to do and keep up on the roads and get the work done. So these scores kind of reflect that. If you look at that urban, if you look at it, the collectors, those are kind of the more of a through street, and the local would be like the streets in front of the homes. So the rural collectors are the less traveled, the urban collectors are the more traveled. An urban collector, for example, might be Coonish out to the highway. That's a pretty heavily traveled roadway. You'll see that that's actually a lower scoring road, I'll get to that in just a second. So these are the scores that our town is actually doing, and we're continuing to do road construction to try to bring it up. As you travel around the town, you know 29 and Double D is under construction, and part of that is Marley Street all the way up to Glendale. We went into a cooperative effort with the county and the village of Howard to get funding to do that section of the roadway. It was a 80-20 split. We got the grant. The state actually picked up 80% of the funding to do that construction. The town, the county paid 10%, and the towns split that other 10% between them, between Howard and Pittsfield, based on the footage of road that was actually being reconstructed. So we ended up paying our portion, Howard ended up paying their portion. So that's under construction. So we're doing from the line there on Marley. This is a picture where the Howard and Pittsfield line, if you look to the left-hand side of the picture, that's the line coming up to that intersection there at Glendale Avenue. It is going to be reconstructed. The curve that is there now is going to be completely taken out, so it will be a four-way stop. We did not put a roundabout in. It's going to be a four-way stop. It's being widened. There's a turn lane that's going to be put in for JW Industries for their stadium seating and whatnot. So the stuff that comes down Glendale, there was some work there. Quite a bit of input put in from industry and whatnot. And if you live in the area, you know we talked to a lot of people over there when we were doing this. The town will also be reconstructing 2 residential roadway sections this year. We'll be repaving Uphill Drive, and then there's a portion of Silver Bowl. We've done some work up in that area on Kidco, Cimarron, a few of those roads. There's a portion of Silver Bowl up there that needs to be reconstructed. So those 2 roads will also be reconstructed over the course of this summer. I mentioned Coonish Road. You might have heard on the local news about the bipartisan infrastructure law or the local programming grant. It was a big thing. Congress put a bunch of money together to throw out to get infrastructure done. That money was given to the states, and it was split up, and it's going to be spent over, is it 5 years, Paul?
Yes.
5 years. So they're going to have grants over 5 years to do different projects. Coonish Road is a road that we've been looking at reconstructing. It's been on our radar. We got short notice that this infrastructure grant was out there. We quickly kind of had it. You've heard the term shovel ready. That's kind of how we had this one, so that when the opportunity popped up, we threw it in and we put in for the grant. We have not heard back. We haven't heard back yet. We've not heard back yet as to whether or not we got the money. But if we get the money, this is one that we would be applying for to redo that portion of Coonish Road. That is an expensive portion of road because there's a lot of old concrete underneath the roadway that we've got to get out of there because it's just coming back up through the pavement that's there and re-cracking it. So if we go and put another layer of pavement over it, it's just going to continue to crack it. It's time to get it out of there and fix the base of that roadway. So that's pretty much it for, we'll continue to do crack sealing, and we're looking at doing some shouldering on some roads. Those are things that we will continue to do as we move forward through the summer. We'll move on to item number 16 on our agenda, which is our community center park update. Want to make sure that I extend an invitation from the park committee. Supervisor Holowinski is our chair of the park committee. The park cleanup day this year, April 30th. If you feel like it shouldn't take long, many hands make short work. So if you've got some time on the Saturday morning on the 30th, 7 a.m. we'll start. We're going to put some layers, some brush down, do a little cleanup, a few things around the park. So you feel free to show up on that day at 7 a.m. right outside, right here. Pittsfield, last year you heard that on September 11th we had the community day, which was concessions, whatnot. Community day is coming up again. That'll be Saturday, May 21st. Mr. Holowinski, did you want to say a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this year we have a few things that are the same. We added a few things for the Community Day event. We have the petting zoo. We added the bounce houses this year. There's a band. I forgot the name off the top of my head. The band playing.
Fork in the Road.
Fork in the Road, yes. Fork in the Road. Concession stands again. Carnival games. Kids. Small carnival games. Prizes for the kids. 2 face painters this year compared to our 1 last year. Basket raffles. We're getting donations from places around the area. Businesses around the area, and doing basket raffle, a 50-50 raffle, and a craft fair, outside craft fair. So if you guys know anybody that would like to be vendors, they're $12. It's 12 by 12 spot for $25 a spot to be a vendor. I have some sheets in the back that if anybody's wants to do it, you can fill out the application and bring it to us now, or send it in to the PACE, or bring it to the PACE office in Pulaski. Spread the word, get it out there. We're just our little event, but we like to keep it growing every year. One thing that is happening, last meeting we had Eagle Scout Christian, Eagle Scout doing his, Boy Scout doing his Eagle Scout project. His name is Christian. He looked at doing a Gaga ball pit. He's going to be doing that, adding it right back on the side here next to the other playground equipment. Another thing that we're looking at doing is turning the west side of the walking trail. Every year it gets cut, but possibly making it into a prairie grass or wildflower type area there too. So if you guys have any concerns, questions, anything like that, what you'd like to see in the park, let us know. Give us a call. Message on Facebook, on our park page. Contact us that way. So we'd like to get your opinion on stuff that's going on, what you see, and what you would like. That's what I have.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Holowinski? The other thing that we wanted to make a note of is the athletic fields right out here, as you can see outlined in red. Those were planted. We feel that they're adequate to be used now this summer. So we are opening them up May 1st. We've had some inquiries already, so if you're interested or you have a league that wants to use it, contact the town offices to get the scheduling. It'd be good to see kids playing on that big green field. The next item on the agenda, garbage collection services. This actually is garbage and recycling collection. The town has, it was 7 years ago that the town went to not only having Dale disposal, pickup, recycling. They did that for a few years before, but then we went and did the research and decided that we would have them do, also contract with them to do garbage pickup. We had signed a 7-year contract with them. The contract is up at the end of this year. The town is looking at what we're going to do with this. If we should go to a different contractor, if you're satisfied with the services that you're getting, I guess we're looking for input for what we're going to do with this, because it is a concern. If we change vendors, we may have to change carts, that kind of stuff. I know there was some real concerns over the carts when we first implemented it, so I want to make sure that it's put out there that this is something that we're considering. So, any questions on that issue or concerns? Here. Ellen?
I was gonna say, I think they was doing a great job.
All right. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What?
I have a question.
Yep, go ahead.
What about, from, when it first started, you just put it on our tax bill, and what, financially, you're gonna shop around, I'm sure they're gonna raise the price, that can automatically go up, or?
So, when we signed the contract with Dale, they locked in for the 7 years. The only thing that you have seen changes in that on your taxes. And most of that has been because of the tipping rates that have changed and any fuel surcharges. Those have been the two things that we've tried to predict that changed those rates. We would have to, with garbage collection, much like it's considered a professional service. So it's one of those things that the town can actually negotiate directly with a service provider, or they can go out for lowest bids. But if they go out for lowest bids, they don't have to take the lowest bid. They can look at the service provider and decide whether or not they want to go that route. When we, actually 7 years ago, when we went with Dale, we put a request for information out, and Dale came back, and another company came back, and the conversation at the meeting, it was an open meeting. The input from the people that were at that meeting, the decision was made, even though Dale was slightly higher, they said because of the quality of service that they had seen from the recycling, and that they felt that we should stick with that particular service provider. So we can go back out and put it back out, or we could look to renegotiate with Dale. So that was kind of why we wanted to put that out here today. It's just to get input. If you've got input, I've heard one comment that they like what's been done.
Yeah, sure. I'd agree with that Dale's been the best service that I've seen in the last 7 years. The service before that was hideous. They forgot me once in a while. I'm the first house is coming to Marley Pittsfield, and we'd get forgotten about, but Dale, never. And the one time I think I put it out late, I called them and they came back and picked it up later in the route.
so they're amazing.
So we're getting good service, is what
Absolutely.
you're saying. Okay. It's funny because I was at, if you guys don't know, I also serve as your county board supervisor over here. So yesterday I was at I went down and I got to tour the big hole in the ground down in Greenleaf, the brand new Brown County dump, municipal waste site, okay? But I got the tour down there and talking with people and whatnot, and I had heard from comment from an individual that another one of those service providers, and I don't know if it's the same way, they're talking about they're continually dumping them. We're not hearing that about Dale. So that says something, that people aren't dumping them, they're going to them, so.
Rob Kufel, is there a cost savings to sticking with Dale because the carts are already here, or is that something?
I don't know, it might be. Mr. Kisner?
Mr. Chairman, I guess I move, if it's appropriate at this time, that the town board in good faith try to renegotiate a garbage service contract to continue with Dale services.
Okay, so you realize this would be a recommendation.
That is correct.
Okay. So he made so Mr. Kismerick is making a motion to recommend to the town that we try to renegotiate with our current service provider, Dale. Would someone want to second that? I got lots of hands here. So I'm going to go with Mr. Kufel here as a second. So all those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I hear no opposition to that, so that will look carried unanimous. So that gives important some indications to which way to go. So thank you very much for that input. So, all right, we'll move on. Pittsfield Planning and Community Design Survey. I wanted to bring forth, we are talking, the board and the planning committee has been talking about the future of the town and what it's going to look like, and part of that is that we've contracted with Needham Hunt with a community planner, and one of the things he's doing is he's put a website out on the town's website. He put a survey. Okay, so some of those pictures that you saw are in this survey. The survey should take you no more than 10 minutes. I'm going to ask, if you're interested in what your town's going to look like, go to the Town of Pittsfield website, townofpittsfield.org, and go to the news area and scroll down. And in the news area, you'll come to an article called Pittsfield Planning and Community Design. There is a link there to take that survey. So it'll talk about things like road design, how many houses per acre, and lot sizes, community design things. So I would recommend that, and I'd ask you to do that so that we get input from the community as to what you think this should look like. So that's this area. All right, now we're going to get into the big issues. So a lot of these issues started with this particular issue right here. The Village of Pulaski's water issues. Okay? So the Village of Pulaski is growing, and they need to grow their water supply for their residents up in the village. So they went and they contracted with Robert E. Lee to do a water system study. So they started looking at this, and the final results came out in January. I was aware of this. I've known about this for about a year, a little bit more than that. Okay, but this is coming, and I've been talking to the leaders, both north and south of us, about this and the other issues. That's what you guys elected me to do, so I've been doing that. So let's talk first off about the Village of Pulaski's water, what this study finds. Now these are actual slides from their study. It's not the whole thing, but it's some select slides. So what the study recommended is for the Village of Pulaski to do 4 things, okay? They are on a well system up there. They've got 2 wells, is that correct? So they got 2 wells, a water tower and a reservoir up there. So the first alternative that they were looking at was to upgrade their groundwater system. To do that would take major upgrades to their well stations number 1 and 2, plus they'd have to construct a 3rd well in order to provide the needed amount of water. Their second alternative was to purchase lake water or municipal water. There's 2 options for that. Alternative 2 would be to purchase it through Hobart with the Green Bay Water utility water supply. You've all driven down Highway 29 across from Maplewood Meats and you see that water tower there? That's Hobart's water tower. There's water from the lake in that water tower. Okay? City of Green Bay pipes it from, I believe it's from Kewanee. They pipe it all the way up over the hill and down into the city and then out to Hobart. So that's the first alternative. The second alternative, or the third alternative that they looked at was to purchase water through Howard, through the Central Brown County Water Authority. That is also lake water. That water comes from Manitowoc, and there's 6 municipalities that purchase water through that water authority, and it comes up Highway 43 up, and it gets spread around the municipal area, and Howard is one of the providers that takes that particular water. Their fourth alternative was to do nothing. I guess you can probably all guess for that one. I'm going to continue on. So, alternative 1. So they would have to do major upgrades to their well station number 1, pumping, piping, electrical. Same with number 2. They would have to construct a well station number 3. They would have to do iron and biofilm filtration. Now, we all are on wells here, okay? How many of you have iron in your water? Okay. If you go in the bathrooms here, you'll see the brown stains, and it's not from what you think; it's from the iron, right? Okay. They've got the same problem up there. Anywhere you drill a well, you're going to have iron. Okay. When the wind blows, the iron that settles on their water tower, it shakes loose, and people, if you're on Facebook at all and you're on the What's Up Pulaski, there's a lot of times you'll see people running their faucets and it looks disgustingly brown coming out of there because of the amounts of iron that shakes off the water tower and goes throughout that village. The other thing that we all have to start worrying about is PFAS. If you haven't heard of that, that's that contamination that is out there. There was I believe it was up in Marinette. They had a lot of problems where we had the firefighting foam that got into the water systems. Okay, that's all over. That's technically all over, and it's only believed that eventually we could have to start testing individual wells if the DNR keeps on it. Okay, for PFAS infiltration. And municipals, as you can see, as they talk about some of the drawbacks, they talk about the iron and biofilm filtration plus the PFAS treatment. If the DNR orders them to do that, it's going to be a very expensive alternative to treat their water up there. So they weren't real happy with the idea of upgrading to groundwater up in Pulaski. So their second alternative was that alternative 2, so they would construct a pipeline from Hobart to Pulaski. There'd be a pump station between the communities. They'd purchase water from there. They're going to pay what's called a wheeling rate or a conveyance rate to Hobart. Basically, it's a rate to pay to run water through the pipe. The next one is to construct a pipeline from Howard to Pulaski with a pump station. Water would be purchased there. The wheeling rate paid to Howard. They noted some drawbacks, so some limited maximum day supply availability, some peak rate stuff, some other things, and the fact of order agreements may be required. The last one, they're do nothing, you know, obviously they're gonna be not in compliance if things change. They believe that, there's some stuff coming up with sanitary sewer which may force them into doing something. Their well stations are gonna run on borrowed time, so it wasn't a good alternative. Cost-wise, to upgrade, if you look at the first column where it's highlighted in 20 million to upgrade the groundwater with upgrades for treatment of PFAS, 20 million. The two alternatives there to bring in, or just to upgrade the groundwater, 9,700,000. To bring in the lake water from Hobart, their estimated cost was 10 million, 12 million from Howard. Now, after these numbers went out, there was some concerns on some numbers, so there might be some readjustments on this, but the basic premise, what this means for Pittsfield, is that what was basically said the first night, they're not going with groundwater. They are going to purchase lake water from somebody. They've had enough of iron in there, and if they drill another well, they're just going to have all those problems all over again. It just doesn't pay. It doesn't make sense for them to go with anything but lake water. Well, as the village president, Keith Chambers, said, if they're going to go with lake water, they got to drag that garden hose through Pittsfield. Plain and simple. So they're coming, they got to get that water through here. So here's Pittsfield. So the red line on this map was kind of what was laid out as a possible route where that main would run through the town. That area down there is where that water tower, that Hobart water tower is across from Maplewood. That's kind of a rough area there. It would run over, come up you, go to the Mountain Bay Trail, and then run along the trail. For those of you that are familiar with it, the sanitary line from Pulaski runs along the same route along the trail in that area. It deviates when it gets to Coonish, which will look, and it looks a lot like that. That blue line represents what would happen if they purchased water from Howard. So those mains would come through the town. So does that mean that Pittsfield residents are going to be on municipal water? I want you to hold that thought as I move forward with this presentation. Okay, I'm going to come back to this slide. We're going to start talking about annexation, what, why, how. What is annexation? Annexation is when a piece of property changes its where it belongs in a municipality. So it goes from a town into the governing body of a village or a city. We're not bordered by cities, but it goes from being a taxable property and under the jurisdiction of the town to being under the jurisdiction of a village. That's what annexation is. Now, why would somebody want to go into a village? You can see those tax rates, right? Pittsfield's at 279, Pulaski's at 873. Howard's at 398. That's the local tax rates. But why would they want to go? They want to go for sewer and water. Services. Services is what those municipalities can provide. What you see here is the New Life Community Church property, which was in the town of Pittsfield until recently. Okay? Now, one kind of a different point is that was a tax-exempt property because it was a church, but they still annexed. Okay? And the reason they annexed was because they're building a school there. And when they put that school in, obviously they need sewer and water. So they annexed in, we lost that property off the tax rolls. They are no longer in the village, or in the town of Pittsfield. They are in Pulaski. There was another 38 point some acres that went at the same time. It was kind of back behind Burns in that subdivision. That property also went in at the same time. They petitioned and went in. 2 days after that property was annexed, it was sold to a developer. So that developer is going to put, I'm sure, I believe it was Wade McCauley, I'm sure that will become residential lots in the village of Pulaski. Okay? Again, Pulaski can provide water and sewer in that area for those developers. So how did it get in? Okay, there's a couple of ways that annexation can happen. The first way is by what's called a unanimous petition. Okay? Unanimous petition means that the owners of the property want to be annexed. One of the rumors that I heard floating around is that the whole south half of Pittsfield is going to get taken over, is getting forced into the village of Howard. That cannot happen if the residents don't say they want to go. Except for one, and we'll get to it in just a second, I'll explain how you can get forced. But the majority of it will not happen if people don't want to go. And people won't want to go if we can provide what? Services, water and sewer. Okay? The other part of it is, with all annexation, the property has to be what's called contiguous. It has to be touching the property line of the village. Just looking at my attorney here to make sure that I'm saying the right things. Okay. All right. So the other way that you can get forced into an annexation is what's called a non-unanimous or one-half approval style annexation. Now, I made my little fictitious township property here because I don't want to use anybody's property and have them come in, somebody's telling them, hey, Mr. Jones, your property was listed. So here we have the fictitious town that's in brown. The village is down there in green down on the bottom in Town Line Road, okay? You got Mr. Jones who owns some property, and Mr. Smith that owns some property. Let's say Mr. Jones decides he wants to become a member of the village. Who knows why he wants to become a member of the village? Maybe his well failed. Maybe his septic system is failing. It doesn't matter. He can petition. He could petition if his property is of the same size as Mr. Smith. He could file that non-unanimous or one-half approval, as long as it's equal or greater. He could file a petition to annex that property in and force Mr. Smith to become a village, to go into the village. Those are really the two major ways that annexations happen. There's a few other technical ways that are hardly ever used, and I'm not even going to get into it because it doesn't apply to probably what would ever happen in our town. But those are the two big ones. Okay? There's another reason I mentioned that Mr. Jones there. I didn't say how big his property is. Okay? Say that's an 80. Okay? Another thing he may want to do is divide his land. Maybe he wants to divide it up and make a subdivision out of it. Land division is another reason for annexation. See the blue dotted lines on there? Those lines are what's known as extraterritorial review lines. They're basically 1.5 miles from the edge of the village. A village has a right to review land division within that 1.5 miles and actually can reject it. So say Mr. Jones came to the town and said, hey guys, I'm gonna put a subdivision in, here's my plat, I'm gonna put a road in, I'm gonna divide my 80 up into 45 lots, this is what I'm gonna do. That plat, if it was within that 1.5 miles, would have to get sent to the bordering village. The bordering village could say, no, we're not gonna allow that, and they can do it. Legally, they have the right to stop that land division. So the problem is, once they do that, so what they do, if they do that, most of the time what they say to that person is, you know what? If you annex into us, annex your property into our village, and we'll let you divide it. Now, I'm not knocking, I get it, you may have a farmer out there, that's his retirement plan, okay, I get it, but that's what could happen, okay? The thing to remember about those extraterritorial review lines, it's a moving line. Here's our fictitious village or township again. Let's say that's that 1.5 mile line. Okay? Say this guy down here on the corner of Town Line Road decides he wants to annex into the village, and he successfully does it. That line now moves. That's where that 1.5 now belongs. Okay? We go back up to this one. If things start annexing north or south, those lines start moving. Pretty soon, I'm afraid those lines are going to be like this. Then the town doesn't have any control over what's going to happen. So, now let's go back to this, okay? Does this mean Pittsfield residents will be on municipal water? Remember I talked about that services are important, okay? That's why people can want to annex, okay? I said these are main lines, okay? So those would run through. If the town wanted, or if the town decided to put in water, and one of the reasons we put in water obviously would be to block annexation or to provide those services to a landowner that's along there that would want them. And Mr. Parmentier, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that if we can provide services and it comes up on a territorial review, I believe we can contest, if a village turns it down, I believe we can contest it. Is that a correct statement, or do you want to explain that a little bit?
Sure, yeah. Those two things are the two motivating factors for an annexation, right? Unless you like paying a higher tax bill, you're not going to do it unless either you need utility services that you're not going to get from the town of Pittsfield, or unless you're strong-armed into one of the villages because they refuse to approve your land division otherwise. You can deal with that first issue. You can deal with the lack of utilities issue by putting yourself, your town, in a position to provide utilities. Then there's no reason to pay the higher taxes if you can get the utilities anyway. That second issue, the use of this extraterritorial land division review authority, is not unlimited. There are caps on it, and there are reasons that are legitimate and reasons that are not legitimate. Lots of technicalities and case law and things about what you can and can't do. But in those situations, and I've been involved in these, if the village then tries to say no to a land division, to try and force a property in, for reasons that are not allowed, that allows the town to then contest it and try and block that action or force the village or whatever village it might be to approve it anyway. And in combination, those things can quite often result in the town being able to provide those services, the residents being able to receive those services, no need for annexations, keeps tax bills down, doesn't move those 1.5-mile extraterritorial lines, allows the development to occur here rather than in the village, which provides greater tax base and lower taxes for everybody else, and all of the other benefits that you enjoy, the things that you would lose to annexation, you can keep to yourself if you set it up front.
Okay.
Does the town have to allow that pipeline to go through?
Okay, could you just state your name for the...
Oh, Judy Cassidy.
Judy Cass, okay. So the question was, do we have to allow those pipelines to come through? Yes. Yes. There's state law that says we can't block that. Okay, so we can't throw that block up. So, and they would, if say there was, if we would have been allowed to say, because it's on a town road, if we would have been able to say that, they would have found a different way to get it there. So, the answer is no. So, thank you. It was a good question. So I'm going to talk about water costs here a little bit, okay, and how putting in water impacts people that own property. So back again to our fictitious town, right? But this time I've divided it up into a few different parcels, say. So we got 2 R's down there. Those are residential lots. One's a little bigger, got a little bit more frontage than the other one. Okay, then we got some ag land, agricultural fields, and we have some commercial property. Okay, so let's imagine that a village runs a pipeline. That's the blue line, okay? They run it along Town Line Road, and they run it up that side street. Who knows where? They're running it up to another village or where another provider, okay? Because those are main supply lines, there's no cost impact to those people that are along in front of that. The 2 residents, the ag landowner, the commercial property owner. There's no impact to them because it's a main supply line that's going somewhere else. Okay? So now if the town decides to put water in to provide those services that we're talking about, the town would create what's called a water utility. It's very similar. You heard earlier the report from the sewer district. Okay? The sewer district was formed many years ago to provide sewer services. Okay? They put lines in and provided services to a lot of homes. Okay? The way they did that was they did some borrowing, and they extended that borrowing out for a long time, and you got charged a specific rate, and if that line ran past in front of your house, you hooked up. Okay? And you got charged a rate. There was an installation cost. I believe you either had to, if you didn't pay it all off right away, you paid a portion every year towards that bill. Okay? That's how that process worked. So if the town, say the town was to set up a water utility, it would be almost an identical way. There's very creative ways to set up a water utility to do the financing. And right now, actually, there's some really, I want to thank Ms. Decker because she found some very good financing options that are actually out there that takes it out 30 and 40 years, loans at very low rates. And there's actually grants and other things out there right now to put water into not so urban areas. So, say the town wanted to put in the red line there, okay? So they would put in, that line would run through there. Guess what? Yep, the 2 R's are going to get hooked up. And you're probably going to get hooked up based on your frontage, how many feet that runs in front of. So the smaller R would probably get less of a charge than the larger R. There's a possibility there. The commercial, because it's a little wider, would probably get charged a little bit more. Okay? But then there's the ag land. Most of the time what's done with ag land, and I believe it might actually be statutory, is that correct? Okay. So statutory for ag land, that cost is actually deferred. So it's deferred until the property is sold or it's developed, or that kind, something like that happens, that would be set up in the organization of a water utility. So the costs wouldn't go out onto the general tax bill. The cost would be towards that water utility. It would probably be put out over a loan, spread over a long time period. And yes, some people, if we were to put in water for services, some people might get forced onto municipal water. These are tough decisions. But if we don't do something like this, we may end up not having a town in the future. So, just state your name for me. So that, okay.
What's the time frame here? You're saying all this and we're all getting it, but what's your time frame? Are we talking 10 years? Are we talking a year? Or?
The village is hoping to dig within 2 years if we putting the lines in. Okay? So if the town is going to do something, we're going to have to make a decision and probably get in with them when they make that decision. Their decision for which one of those alternatives are going to come out is actually going to, they're expecting that to come out in July. Okay? All right. I'm going to keep moving on.
I got one question.
Oh, yes.
Okay, are we gonna put new sewer in also with the water line, or is this just water?
Those are discussions that have got to be had.
So, the sewer that we put in, we're gonna have to start all over again.
It may, one of the discussions that came up is, and it may involve a brand new sewer district, a totally separate sewer district.
Throw out everything we did.
No, your sewer district the current sewer district would remain and continue in operation, but there may be a new sewer district established.
Okay, one other thing about the ag part of it, where you run a line through it. I know a guy down in Freedom that happened to, and when you sell that property, you get quite a bill.
Yeah, that's what the deferment is. That's
Remember
the,
that?
did we catch his name? Could you state your name, please?
Bob Thorne.
Thank you.
Yeah, you get quite a bill.
Yeah,
when you
I'm not, that's exactly correct.
So you
Yeah,
gotta make
so
sure
that,
everybody knows about that.
so those are the type of things, but generally when those people sell those land, a lot of times they're selling it,
Next guy.
they're passing it on to the next guy, because most likely they're selling it on, the next guy that buys it is probably a developer. So they'll figure that cost in. So does Pittsfield need water? Is there future planning?
Roger Pittsfield. All of this to me sounds like it's going to be a real good deal for developers. Because presently, I think you have to have 5 acres to build a house here. Now, if you've got 40 acres, you can pop them on there like popcorn.
Oh, hold on. So I don't think anybody over here probably heard that. So the question, the comment.
What he's trying to tell
Yep.
you is, when you run this water utility through, and sooner or later new sewer, then that's gonna run from a 5-acre parcel to probably half an acre.
Okay,
And
so
you're gonna end up with a ghetto like you have over in Jerome Pampers.
So, hold on. I don't want to lose control of this meeting. But, and I'm not disagreeing with you, okay? So, the comment that was made is that this all sounds good for developers. And that is, there is a point to that, okay? But there's also a comment made that you need 5 acres. It depends on your zoning as to what you need for. If you zone 2 different parcels, you can be down to 1.5 acres. If you're zoned for sewer, you can be down to 1/2 acre or 1/3 of an acre. So there are things that are coming. Let me continue on, and I will get to questions. So I'm starting to take some questions, but I want to get through this, and then I'll open it up completely. Okay? So please let me continue. So has the town been planning for development? The town has been publicly meeting through our planning commission and had public meetings, and we're talking about development. Okay? We're talking about, this is the Coonish area, or excuse me, the Anston area. We're talking about developing, for future, we're laying this out as to what would be good for the town. When 29 and Double V goes in, you can bet the developers are already drooling over our properties up this way because it's a direct shot. Okay? So what this reflects up in this area is the stuff that's to the east of C and south of C and south of Anson. That's a lot of that's like industrial, light industrial type stuff, possibility of multi-family, those type of properties, because you know the developers are going to be coming in and looking for it. So if it's going to happen, the town would like to direct where that would happen and not all over, or even if it does. So this is something that the town has been doing. This is a document that we've been bouncing around. Okay, we're putting together what's called a planning book. That's part of that survey that I talked about earlier, to get input from people as to how this is going to continue on. Okay, so this particular map, the red lines are current roads. Down on the bottom is the border. You can see Anston up there. The community center is up there. You can see the drawn-in lines that run through the different fields all over the southern portion of the township. Can everybody see that? Okay. What that shows is where roads are possible to be laid out for development. This wasn't put together by the town of Pittsfield. This was given to us by the village of Howard. Okay, so right up the center right here is County Jerk Highway C. So this is Glendale Avenue, that loop right there, that's Glendale Avenue. Okay, go up Maple, Meadow, Sunnybrook, County Jerk Highway U, and you can see all the little roads. Somebody's planning. So what options does the town have? Okay, our first option, and this is kind of getting to what we're talking about here. First option is to do nothing. If we do that, can anybody guess what's going to happen? You're going to see this, right? Item number 2, put in those services to provide that. And yes, is it going to be good for developers? Possibly. But as I've had to tell many people over the 17 years that I've been doing this, unless you own the property, you don't own the property, so you don't control what happens to it. Okay? So I can't guarantee what my neighbor's going to do. If my neighbor owns an 80 next door to me, and he decides to sell it because it's best for him, and the town's not in position to be able to help him, he may want to annex. That's just the way it works. So we've got that. This is a picture of our sewer district down there in the upper corner, and obviously those pictures of those lines. If those lines come through, there's a possibility that we could create a water utility. It's an option. And put water along the borders or in different areas to help grow the town and provide those services. You just heard with the sanitary district, LP wants to put a huge amount of wastewater into the sanitary district. They're growing. If they're growing, other industry's going to want to come to the town. We have to be in a position to be able to provide that services to them. And if we do provide that and control where they go and put them into an area where there's other industrial, that helps our tax bases for the rest of the town. And quite frankly, if it's going to come and we can't provide it, again, a different municipality might. So the last thing we can do is maybe enter into a border agreement. Some of you have heard about border agreements. They can be good. They can be bad. Okay? There's not a lot of them out there. There are some. So what does a border agreement do? Okay? Quite frankly, a border agreement gives up some stuff from both sides. First, it sets up agreed upon annexation limits. So let's go back to our fictitious township again. Okay? There's that 1.5 mile extraterritorial line, and let's just say that the town and the village have entered into a border agreement, and they agree, okay, this is the border agreement line. What that means is the town would agree not to object to unanimous annexations, but we wouldn't agree. There's no way we would ever enter into a border agreement that would agree for a non-unanimous. So that means that if that portion there would decide they wanted to go into the village, the town would not object to it. Now, quite frankly, it's very hard for the town to object to an annexation anyways. There's not a lot we can do. Unless we can provide services. So the second thing that the town would agree to with a border agreement is we would agree not to put services into the area. So if we were to run water or something like, or water or sewer, we would only run it up to that border agreement line. We wouldn't do anything further in there. So like, we wouldn't put any water, any sewer. The village would agree not to object to extraterritorial issues outside of that border line. So say that the person right outside of that border agreement line wanted to subdivide his property, the village would agree that they wouldn't object to that. So that's something that the town would get. They'd also agree that they wouldn't put services into those areas. So one of the first things they'd probably do is run water right up to that border agreement line and sewer. Now there's possible other things that we could get out of a minor different little things that we could probably get out of a border agreement. Matt, is there anything else of major?
No, I mean, you can deal with cost sharing, you can deal with shared services, all kinds of miscellaneous issues. But those are the biggies, right? Where you draw the line, and whether that line ends up in a location that's better than you would have gotten if you don't do anything, or worse than what you would get if you didn't do anything, which is what it really comes down to.
So those are the options. That's our options. The town board has been working to try to figure out what to do, and we've been working behind the scenes. If you've been watching our meetings and watching the agendas, you'll notice that for quite some time we've been having some meetings, some closed session meetings, and they've been titled Future Planning. You can guess what the future planning was that we discussed. I can't discuss what was said in there, but I can tell you that you can probably guess what we were talking about during those issues. Okay? And I have been personally meeting with the admin of both the town or the village to the north and the village to the south, and talking about these very issues. I feel that that's what you guys elected me to do, and I've been trying to work that out. Now, there's been no decisions made, and there's been no action taken. Anything that was, if there was action taken or decisions made, it would have been done in an open session at a town board meeting, and there probably would have been public hearings, and there probably would have been just as many people there as it is tonight. Okay? So hopefully, this has answered some questions and given you guys some perspective as to where the town has been and what your town board has been doing to try to get ahead of this. Trying to understand it, trying to get there. So questions. Okay, we got a lot of questions. So I'm going to start right here and we'll work our way around. Go ahead.
Jay Myers, so you had mentioned setting up a water utility that there were plans to dig within 2 years. Are you able to disclose those plans?
So, when I spoke about that, that is the village of Pulaski running that main line. Okay? They wanna be digging and putting that new line within 2 years. The town has not entered into any agreements, or we've talked theoretically about a water utility, but that's about it, in understanding what would happen. Okay? Person right behind you.
Jerry Kushel, you mentioned either they were going to go from Hobart or from Howard. If they went from Hobart, wouldn't that be, if they went from Howard, you would think that Howard would then want to annex. If they went the Hobart route, Hobart isn't next to us. That we would hold off the idea of annexing from Howard because we're running it through, and we wouldn't be running it out of Howard.
The complexity of what those other municipalities are gonna do is a whole other thing. You know, what they're gonna do if they run one thing or another. If Howard gets the contract, are they less likely to annex than if Hobart or if the city? I think it's probably the other way around. I think if they're running the line through there, they've already got the services that they're going to be putting. I think if I were in Howard, I'd be putting taps in those lines to be ready to tap into people's as they went by. That's just my personal opinion. So next, Helen.
How long are those border agreements for? Is it perpetual?
So there are two types of border agreements. My understanding is generally there's a 10-year agreement or there's a lifetime agreement. And I believe the lifetime agreement is.
You can do, there's two different statutes, both of which require all kinds of hearings and process, and that's why you will be involved if it ever gets to that point. But there's one process that all happens locally, goes through hearings, gets approved by the boards. The maximum duration of one of those agreements is 10 years. If you're doing anything beyond 10 years, so you can do 20, 30, 40, I've done 100-year, I've done agreements that last forever. Different set of statutes, those go through a whole lot more process. They have to get approved by the Department of Administration in Madison, and then they come back for hearings, take longer, more involved, that kind of thing. So, depending on whether the municipality want to do the quick version, then you get that 10 years. If you want to do the more ambitious thing, then you can get a longer.
So it's not controlled by the powers in office at the time of the agreement?
Yes, it is.
It is? So can it be changed, like if a new administration came in?
Anything I think can be done, but mostly it would be a negotiation. Everything is always open to negotiation.
Okay.
Mr. Dunks.
I have a handful of questions. First of all, the extraterritorial review. They can't hold you to a higher standard than they have adjacent to that border, correct?
That is my understanding.
It's complicated. There's,
Well, I know it's complicated, but
that's why they changed the money to say maybe. There are two different types of extraterritorial review.
yes.
There is extraterritorial land division review, which has to do with how you plat your lots, dimensional requirements, that kind of thing. Then there is extraterritorial zoning review, which has to do with actual land use decisions. Two distinct things, two separate statutes, two different processes. Sometimes villages don't appreciate the distinctions between the two, and sometimes villages will try and use their extraterritorial land division review, which they all have, and do extraterritorial zoning things, which they don't have. It's very rare that a village has extraterritorial zoning. And so a land division ordinance will typically include a section on extraterritorial reviews. And the trick is, or what happens is, they can't say your residential development has to come into the village. What they do is they say, we won't approve any lot size under 35 acres. And you know, you see what happens. That prevents a residential development from occurring, then they require annexation and exchange. So those are the things that you know, that's the two sides of the extraterritorial.
But if they have, if they're building third acre parcels adjacent to yours, they cannot hold you to that 35 acre standard. They can't hold you to a higher standard than what the community has like that.
They can't I don't believe, but understand that the town does have ordinance for residential sewer and water that are very comparable to what Howard
That's where
has.
I'm going with this. They can say you have to have sewer lots, which along the border of Howard, you pretty much can do, correct?
The ordinance in the town allows for small lots that are similar in size to what Howard has. If it's sewer, it has sewer and water. That would be the thing, is that we would be able to provide the same size lot, basically, as Howard would.
Can they reject the plat that serves with sewer but requires what?
They don't reject based on the services, but they'll reject.
Oh,
they'll review.
Whatever they can.
Yeah, they'll review based on whatever the standards in the ordinance are. But you know, the way that these boundary agreements are set up is again, however the parties choose to. There's lots of things that you can do, but what normally happens is you identify a line, and there's lots of negotiation over where the line is. Is the line in a good place or a bad place? And then what we say is, beyond that line, you waive your extraterritorial review. So if it's at half a mile, whatever, you know, the village then gives up all extraterritorial review in that area. So then you've really, you know, the village has spoken for a portion, and then the rest is off limits. And if that is coupled with utility services, then you have both, right? It's belt and suspenders. If you don't, then you're relying on the border agreement or the utilities as the two alternatives.
Well, I'm trying to look at it, what is our actual risk along the Howard border for that annexation? If we can provide the sewer service to any of those open parcels right now, and is water really a requirement? I know they can reject it because they can require these small lots of sewer.
Yeah.
I knew it was the other argument.
Often. And
Right.
I actually reviewed extraterritorial plats that come in the village or in the town of Pittsfield for the village of Slumville. So I know what that curtails, but we have no sewer lots anywhere near Pittsfield borders. So we don't look at, I don't even look at, I don't look at anything. We pretty much just rubber stamp it. There's nothing we can reject it on. If there's technicalities out there, I leave that up to our state surveyors to get those correct or Brown County and they can correct it anyway. But I guess how much of our is subject to that wouldn't be able to be served by our current sanitary services?
Our current sanitary district, I think I mentioned it before, I think we would have to create, and it's a discussion that we've had, is that there's a possibility we would have to create another sanitary district to be able to help service that. Because of some of the complications that are involved in that current sanitary district with the debt and a few other things, it may be advantageous to create another sanitary district to deal with some of those issues.
My last question, through Howard, having the ability to reject it from the Brown County Water Authority, has that conversation come up yet? Are they going to allow Pittsfield to be part of the Brown County Water Authority? Or are they going to mix it as one of those?
Well, let me put it, my understanding is, so there's a difference between, so everybody's educated here, there's a difference between the city water, Green Bay Water Authority, and the Central Brown County Water Authority. The City Water Authority, that's through the city of Green Bay. It takes a vote of the city council, and they're looking for customers, so they would probably rubber stamp us if we were to ask to get water from them. The Central Brown County Water Authority is made up of municipalities that are participants and that are purchasing water from them. The likelihood of of us getting into Central Brown County Water Authority, if Howard voted against us, is probably, it isn't gonna happen. If Howard says, no, you know, we demand a border agreement, and that border agreement goes to here, and you need to give up all of this, whatever, or we're not gonna vote, that is a possibility. I don't know, I would hope that that wouldn't happen, but it is a possibility, and.
You've already drawn a map that says they want us.
Okay. Other questions?
I would guess.
You just state your name,
My
please.
name is Dean Portrait.
Thank you.
I would guess there's a number of people here that have got their own wells, everything's paid for, they're happy with their water. Could those people be grandfathered in?
Yes.
And then only the people that are the developers and all that, if they want, they can hook up, maybe pay a little extra so we don't have to pay their rate?
Just about, my understanding is just about anything can happen with when the water utility is put together.
Yes, so, typically, those pipes get funded through special assessments, or at least the, portion that gets charged to people. That's one way that they're charged to people, through special assessments. You've heard that term before. And, there are lots of ways to get creative with them. So there's not a one size fits all answer. So typically, if it runs in front of a property, there will be an assessment tied to that property, and then the question is, what triggers the obligation to pay that assessment, right? It'll lie dormant until some point, and the utility that puts those utilities in decides what those triggering points are. So it could be, and I've seen, everyone's got to connect right away and pay. I've seen you don't have to connect until you choose to connect. I've seen you don't have to until there's a sale of the property. I've seen, payment plans where you don't have to pay for a period of time, where you pay over a period of years, where there's interest or there's no interest. And so there are lots of ways that a town can adjust the way it's set up so that people aren't necessarily hit with that charge right away, or maybe even hit at all unless and until they connect. It's just a matter of what makes sense from a planning perspective and from a financial perspective, because until those are paid, the utility's floating that cost and not making it up. So lots of ways to get creative.
Okay, but the proposals that were given, did not include that, and shouldn't that be a proposal instead?
So what you've seen tonight are, I'm trying to educate or explain. None of it is a proposal. There is no proposal. I'm just trying to show you what the possibilities are. So to answer your question, there is no proposal, and yes, that what you're stating could happen. If the town would decide that it needs to form a water utility, that is a possibility, yes. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Questions?
Can we not protect our waters by becoming a village?
It would be great if we could become a village. The standards to become a village, we don't meet. We have to have water and sewer. We have to have a certain population. I believe we have to have full-time police services coverage.
Yeah, they look at your services, they look at population density. To even file an application, you have to have so many people per square mile that we're not going to meet. Sometimes when you see an incorporation occur, it's usually a small little portion of a town. The downtown area might meet the standards, but everything else wouldn't. So that's just something that Pittsfield wouldn't qualify for at this point.
So to actually tell you, there's down in Wrightstown, the town of Wrightstown, there's a portion of the town of Wrightstown that is filed to be a village, not the whole town of Wrightstown. Okay, so they filed, and their plan is as soon as that part gets in, they're hoping all their residents will annex into that village to then protect it. The state legislature got wind of what their plan is, and they're looking to pass a law, and I'm not sure if did that pass. So it did pass. So they passed a law that says, okay, Wrightstown, you're grandfathered, you can do that. Any other village that becomes an incorporated village has to wait 5 years before they can annex anything. So even if we were to say, take Coonish or Anston, or where our population density was high enough and we were able to create it, it wouldn't stop annexation. It's a good question. Next.
So you've had conversations about neighbors to the south. Have you gotten on the ground as to whether they're even open to border agreements? Are they thinking of playing the heavy hand and just saying, take it?
It is something that we've been discussing. I want to keep the options open. And yeah, they've come to the table. And we've talked about some conceptual stuff. And I really don't, some of the stuff I talked about here was part of that conceptual stuff. I don't want to get into some of the lines and whatnot area, that's the high level stuff that we talked about, because we kind of agreed between us that we wouldn't publicly mention that. Now, I'm not going to do that. I don't know what they're doing. I've heard rumors about all kinds of stuff that's out there. I'm telling you, I'm not going to do that because I won't break my word. Okay? So, but yeah, we've had discussions. And I think that's what you expect me to do.
Sharon Howard. I'm wondering, without disclosing the contents of the meetings, what is the driver for Howard? I mean, I understand the Pulaski and the water and getting that over, but what is driving Howard to that plan for this?
It all comes down to reducing their tax base. The more property that they have, the more homes that they put in. You heard Ms. Decker talk about our valuation. Okay, that valuation goes into those calculations as to what your mill rate is. The more property they get in, the more property they develop, the higher that valuation goes in, the lower their tax rate goes. The lower their tax rate is, the more people want to come into the village, and the more services they can provide. That's the driving force. Behind you there.
Question.
Is that Tom back?
Tom.
Mr. Steinbrecher? Okay. Sorry, I don't know everybody's name, but I do know Tom.
This line has been long. Swamick was right across the work from us. There was rumblings about 2 years ago that Swamick wanted to annex it. Has there been any more talk about that, or is that table?
Again,
Really not true.
Mr. Dunce. Mr. Dunce works he does what Debbie does for Swamico. So again, I'll go back. Annexation doesn't happen unless the landowner requests it, unless it's that non-unanimous. Okay? So Tom, if you want to become in the village of Swamico, you could petition. And we couldn't stop you. Okay? I don't think you'd want to, because I didn't put their rate up here, but it's higher than us. Okay? But you're contiguous. Okay? So now, you heard Mr. Dunks also state that there's no, Swamico doesn't have sewer and water right up against their line. Their sewer and water is a long way from the line at Pittsfield. So this isn't even something that is a concern. It's not even on their radar. So it's not a topic of conversation that I've been having with Alan over at Swamico. So, Mr. Geis.
I got a couple of quick questions. Is the non-unanimous the same as municipality initiated annexation?
No, that's another one. You heard there's a variety of sort of random ones, but if a municipality owns property within a town, there's a process for them to annex as well, and it's expedited, and it doesn't even need to be contiguous. So that's another thing that is out there.
This one sounds like it's similar, and it's clear that you have to go through a process of 3 steps. Adopt a resolution, certain code proceedings, correct me if I'm wrong, the attorney, and referendum. If they want to annex a non-unanimous, if they did make it unanimous, electors want to be annexed. So, but the way to stop it, according to the municipal annexation process in Wisconsin, and legislative reference to it, when it gets to that circuit court proceeding, there's a petition for court testing annexation by the majority of the acres in that territory being annexed, or the owners of more than half of the real estate property in terms of assessed value of the territory. And that the court must deny by law then the referendum by the annexing municipality.
Yeah, that's the annexation by referendum statute, which for that reason, no, they don't use. There's another statute. If you have the list there, it's 66.0217, and that has there's two varieties under that one. There's the unanimous petition, which is subsection 4, and then the rest of it is the 1/2 approval. So there are, right, there's the municipal, the municipality issued version, there's annexation by referendum, and then there's the petition driven ones, which are the unanimous and non-unanimous. So they all have their kind of varieties. But for the reason that you mentioned, that referendum version is usually just avoided altogether. In fact, I haven't seen one. Yeah. So.
Okay. Other questions? Up front here.
Jason Ellsworth. So you taught us you're going to annex for services. You could do it for other things, which nobody would go outside of our town into the lower tax bracket. So could you run services along the border, especially for Howard, which is shared with a war map of their intention to take into account?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's called a blocking move. And that's, Mr. Parmentier can tell, you've had a few of those, haven't you?
Yeah, we do that, and there are places that towns that exist now because they did that once upon a time, and it's protected them. And if you can do it right, it's not a guarantee, right? Because it doesn't. A boundary agreement, the two parties agree contractually. We will never annex over here. We will never. So you know, right? With utilities, you're just trying to kill the motivation, but it doesn't legally prohibit it. It just removes most of the motivation. But if you put those utilities in the ground and you put them in places where the contiguity would exist, that can sometimes do the trick. So that's something that is being looked at as well.
When you go through and we have to pay so much a foot, have you figured out what that would cost?
No, we're not that far into the process. So I believe Mr. Willis had said it was like $65. Was it $65 a foot for?
Yeah, your assessed frontage, the cost is based on the amount of the cost to construct it. So the bids come back to put the water in the ground, that gets divided up per foot. From historically, we've seen everything from like $65 a foot to $100 a foot. That's kind of the general range that it's at right now.
And what would the water bill be historically?
Those are all.
An idea.
Yeah, I don't know. That's I do not have an answer for you, and I apologize. I do not have. That's quite a ways down the line yet. Well, yeah, but you're right. It's probably not. But so there is a wheeling. There would be a rate. Don't remember the cost. The cost per.
Right now, the cost to supply water to Pulaski is about I think it's about $3 a thousand, so $3 for every 1,000 gallons that they purchase, and then that's the raw water cost, and it's very similar between Green Bay and the Water Authority. So that cost gets divided up, and how the rates are set up is some based on that, but it's also administration of the utility too.
So you got to understand that you got that basic charge, but then you've also got, if you end up with how much construction did the water utility do? How much is the loan payment? How much, how did that break out? So all those things go into the factors to trying to figure out what those rates would be. So when I say it's kind of far out, there's a lot of, shall we say, plates spinning in the air to be able to figure that out right now and be able to give you an answer.
I'm just thinking what power is being moved, probably being moved
Probably similar, yes.
Would that affect our taxes as well?
That would not go on your taxes, that would go, because it's a separate charge, it would be a separate charge to the land, to the property owner for use. It would be metered, that type of thing. In the back.
You know, when we moved from Bill Cooper, when we moved out here 15 years ago for property taxes in schools, so God forbid we get annexed by Howard, would we no longer be Class C schools?
No, totally different.
Okay.
The school district is something that would not be affected by that.
But our property taxes will be the same as it?
If you get annexed into a different village, yeah, your property taxes are what theirs are.
That's not
Because most of the time, annexation happens because they, like I said, if you've got somebody that is looking to develop, I just told you about the one up here, he sold that 38 point whatever and then sold it to a developer. I'm sure he made a hefty profit. That's why. In the back here, I can't see who it is.
Yeah, my name is Victoria Silver. I'm a little bit confused when I saw the map going from Hobart to Pulaski and Howard to Pulaski, there was a $2 million. So if I was in Pulaski, I would save myself $2 million and go to Hobart. The second question, I don't think anybody here wants to be under the rule of Howard. We moved here 40 years ago. We had to have an acre and a half to build. We have our own septic and water. And you showed us the red map that Howard has ideas to put houses in. Now they could put house. Where Pittsfield, you have to have an acre and a half. So what I'm saying that as a board and our input, we have to do the best we could to stop them from getting here. If it's putting water main, the service, the other agreement that you were talking about, I don't trust Howard to say, yes, we won't do this anymore. 20 years from now, they may come again, well, we want a little bit more. So you have a tough job on your hands. I do not want to be under Howard's umbrella. I want to be on Pittsfield, and would we have to put in some water to have some services, then we have to do it. So this agreement that you were explaining, I'm not too sure about it because I don't trust the board of Howard. I mean, they already have the map how they want to put houses in, and we want elbow room. You know, Swamigo has an acre and a half, 5 acres, and they have different areas. And I like Pittsfield, and I want to keep Pittsfield as Pittsfield. Just us.
Thank you. I think you remember, if you look, one of the things that when you walk out, look across from the front desk up on the wall. It's a town motto, and that's something that I take quite personally, remembering our heritage, planning for tomorrow. And part of that is trying to keep some of that, development's going to come, but try to keep some of that heritage.
I just want to get one more thing. I think everybody should go on the website and put our input on how we want our Pittsfield to grow, how we want the lots to be. I think that's a very important thing. And could I make a motion on what I said that we should, or this is just input?
It's just, your input is duly noted. If you want to make a motion, you have that, but it's just a recommendation.
Okay. I think that survey that we have to do, I think that's important, because we are going to grow. And do you want to have house, or do you want to have an acre between us, an acre and a half, and still have services?
Go ahead.
Could you, Jay Myers, could you summarize the top 3 or top 2 strategies that the town is doing to defend?
I kind of have.
Yeah. I think
Those options, those two options that I showed here, those number 2 and number 3, those are our only options. And to summarize it, it's either going to be a border agreement or we're going to put in services. That's our only, or do nothing.
But the message almost seems like, I feel like I'm prey.
Yeah. You're right on the border, yeah. That water, they got a water line running right in front of your house, and I would bet any money that there's a tap on the ground right there.
So my well goes out tomorrow, or what do I do?
Your well goes out tomorrow? I'm not gonna give you advice. I'm not gonna, I guess you could probably drill in a well or do it, Okay, so I'm losing control here, so. We're getting down there, we're getting a lot of questions answered. There's still a few more people here who haven't talked, and I wanna get to them, so, back in the back here.
I'm wondering how many people in this room have their own well and their own septic system?
They all do. There's very few that will, we have the people that are on the septic system, otherwise everybody else is on a well. So, yeah, everybody's on a well. But there's some that are on the sanitary district, because they were in an area where their sanitation system has failed way back when. So, right here.
Okay, Glenn Belashinsky. We go back to the beginning. Pulaski had one engineering firm come and did their study, correct?
They did like most municipalities.
Just one, right?
You contract with a municipality, and it's my understanding that they may actually be having that reviewed by, the reason it's taking until August is because the lady that we've seen here, that CLA, that independent auditing firm, they're looking at the numbers. And it'll take them, and it's my understanding that they very well might be having a third-party engineering firm might be looking at that also to get another opinion.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get at, because, you said one engineering firm looked at it, you have 4 options. Different engineering firm can says, well, no, we don't like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So I can't speak for the village of Pulaski, but it's, in my conversations, it sounds like they may have been may be looking at that as an option.
If they don't do it as an option, then just go with what that one engineering firm recommended. Is there a township? Can we force them to go to another engineering firm and say, we need another option? The township of Pittsfield doesn't like your options.
When it comes
because it involves the township.
When it comes right down to it, their engineering firm really has picked 2 different options. And there really is 2 options to get water, for those services. Or there's a third.
Yep.
We could try to put wells in, but then we're going to have, and trying to get a well in is not an easy thing, and then we're going to have the same iron problems and everything, the PFAS problem and everything else that the village is trying to get away from.
Right.
And if, depending on what happens, you heard it mentioned before, Howard could block us from getting it, possibly. And if they don't pick the city may not want to come out just for us. So we may be stuck.
Okay, I'm just talking about Pulaski. Maybe we don't want water coming through Pittsfield, basically, this is Pulaski wants it, correct?
Correct.
Okay. There are other, we did not bring this to put that pipeline through Pittsfield. Who says that you can't, say, look at the third option with the wells?
They're not going to. They're not going to listen to us. They're going to do what's best. I understand where you're going, but I'm going to tell you straight up. They're going to go with the best option for their citizens, and they aren't going to. What happens to us is a secondary factor to them. And what they're going to look at, and they've already made this decision from what I've heard, is that lake water is what they want. They want to get off the wells. And to get the lake water, they got to come through Pittsfield.
Right. I was just saying if you could go through another engineering firm and somebody looks at it on the other side of the coin and says, this might be better this way.
We can't force them to do that. So.
You might have said this already, but if our municipal water supply goes through a water system, people on wells, can they keep their wells and stay on it?
That all comes down to what the decisions, if there was, say there was a water utility put in and that kind of stuff, that all depends on the way it is. I actually had, I'll reflect, I had, my wife's best friend lived in the city of Green Bay. And they lived right up by Southwest High School. And they were on a well until me and my wife were dating, like in 83, 84, when the city finally came in and forced them off the well and forced them to connect into the municipal water. That's a long time that water ran through those subdivisions. That subdivision was, their house was just right off of Ackerland. That was a major area. So who knows how long, it all comes down to what the water utility decides.
Okay, and just one last thing with me. Are you gonna keep us updated on any new developments with the well or with the water?
You understand? Yep.
And, if something is gonna be done, would this be on a vote?
So there's certain things that will have to be, that would have to be done, would definitely require hearings. If we were going to create a water utility, that kind of stuff, it would require public hearings, notices, that kind of stuff. And it's just neat that you brought that up, because if you look at the next item on there, it's town news on the agenda. This is where, okay, so years back, we used to put out a newsletter. You guys ever, some of you remember that? Okay, I got told by a lot of people, you're wasting our time, and we throw it out. Okay, so we have gone now, just like most places, we do it digitally. So the news for the town is up on the website. So it goes up, if you go to the town website, on the front side there's news. You click on that news and you go to the news site, and that's where stuff comes out. We also then link those web pages to Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, like the town, okay? Because then when we post something, you get a notice. This is where the stuff gets noticed. We will continue to discuss it through the agendas are posted on the town website, along with the posting boards, whatnot, so that you can get that information. I know we didn't set that up. Just good timing for you to bring that up. So that's where those things are going to be noticed. And in the back.
Dick Kramer, I've got to go the other way. There's a lot of people who don't like the internet. I'm one of them. I want accountability, I don't want to hear, well, I typed it in. Yeah, well, the other idiot never read it, never saw it, never got it.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, I've had some stupid doctor tell me I'm dying. What the hell am I dying? There's a lot of people that don't read the internet. Facebook. I don't want every Tom, Dick, and Square bothering me. My phone is for one thing, for me, and so it should be my computer. I don't get on Facebook. I don't want no part of it. It's time we gotta put it back to paper and do something, but the internet ain't the answer for everybody.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, a lot of people don't have internet.
Well, we're trying to get better broadband. Have you heard me say that before?
I want to backtrack just a little bit, because I'm sure this affects a lot of people in this room. Going back to the creative water utility and the fixed rates that are going to cost to run water down in front of our properties. If you want to support a corner property, and this might be a little bit ahead of its time, but for large farmers or people that have 40s or 80s, and they're on a corner, and that water follows the property both ways. Is that something that is predetermined that, I'm just doing math in my head, for these simple numbers at $100 a foot, and you have 1,300 feet of frontage.
That's
both
expensive.
directions. Do you get hammered both ways?
Generally, I believe it's where the line is run.
It's how it's set up. That comes with boards too, and before you do the assessments, you get an engineer report with a breakdown of how it's all set up, and sometimes there are credits for things like that in each situation. So the answer is I can't tell you right now how it would be, but
Sorry. Thank you. I think we've covered a lot of questions. Okay, guys, can we keep it down? We still got people with questions. Thank you.
A two-part question. If the township put in water, would they do just water and not sewer with it? And the second question is if the town puts in services, would that eliminate the need for a water agreement?
Both of them are possibly. So would we put in sewer, would we have to put it in some areas that it already exists? Okay? So would we put it in areas where it doesn't exist, but the probability is probably there, it would make sense to do that. For, it's all probable. So I'm sorry I can't give you a definitive answer.
Todd saying, is it my understanding that if water were to come through, it would be descended toward the water district in areas until further you move down the road, request, say, this property sold, developer wants to put water in, now you gotta get water over here. Or do it incrementally, or is it gonna be everywhere all at once?
Those are decisions that haven't been made. I can't give you, do we run a water line from, say they run that water line up you. Do we run a water line all the way down to West Line and all the way back? I don't know. Those are questions that haven't been answered or speculated. And if the town does, they have to look at what's the cost. We would take into effect what's the cost impact, how's it going to ramify our citizens, what is actually needed, where would that water be needed in the future, what's the probability of it providing that blocking. There's all those questions that have to be answered. So, and if the water lines got in, then yes, as developers, if that farmer decides he wants to sell and make his money for his property, then the possibility is there to provide the water for that subdivision.
So 20 years down the road, it might go in, but it may not, nothing may not happen for 20 years.
Exactly. All right. I don't really see any other raised hands, so the last motion is a motion to adjourn. Helen? I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Mr. Kazmarek? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. I want to thank all of you. I expected to be here till midnight. Only 9:45.
Broadcasting.